Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King, and today I'm going to be giving you part 16 of What If Naruto Was the Direct Descendant of the Sage. Remember to get this one to 100 likes as usual, share this to all of your friends in your social media platform, and also guys, go ahead and check out the brand new episode of What If Naruto Had a New Dream that will change everything over on Anime King 2. And remember to stay in tune, I'm going to be posting a brand new episode over on Anime King 3 of What If Naruto's Betrayed by Hagoromo. So stay tuned for that, and I really hope that you guys enjoy. And remember, if you're new, to go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and support. Remember to comment down below and tell me if you're new. I'll be replying talking back to all of you. So yeah, without further ado, what is to begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last part we left off, as Fu wanted to find Tsunade at Asani to help her with her medical ninjutsu training, as she didn't really think about the consequences, like how exactly would she get her to help her. But Naruto went along with their plan as they went and searched the remaining cities in the Hidden Stone, as he used his ability through the water and the moisture in the air to lock onto the most powerful chakra signature. They went through several towns having no luck until they came upon one near a bar. Naruto was sure that this was not Tsunade Asani. He was sure hoping that it was a drunken lady with just some high chakra reserves, but to his surprise it was her after all, as they spoke to her. As Fu asked her, but Tsunade quickly turned her down. It would take too long for any sort of train to happen, so she quickly denied that. But Naruto and Fu were persistent, Naruto the most. Tsunade got fed up after a few days passed. Every single day, every single hour they were there, as she gave them a challenge for Fu to master a chakra controlling exercise on the water, to stand on the water with a Senbon. Shizune was worried because that was difficult for even her. It took her a while, but Tsunade didn't really care. When the time finally over, the 2 days, Tsunade told Fu that she did it wrong, as she told her to use her foot but Fu used her hand as she had more control there. As Fu begged her, as Tsunade was about to walk away, but Naruto stood in her path as he proposed a new challenge and he showed her his staff. He bet his staff. Fu was shocked that he would bet his staff. Tsunade thought that if he really was it, she would get a pretty penny for that. So with that she agreed, as she tried to move Naruto but nothing worked. As Naruto hit her with an almighty push, she was sent sailing as she smashed into a wall. She exploded out of it with fury as her body was humming with chakra, but the time was up. She grunted and retorted, but she told them to meet her at the gate. The group met up with her as she laid down her ground rules. Everything she says is law. We didn't have a time skip as the group has been traveling for a while now. Tsunade has been trying to kill them. Yes, that is the only way that Naruto could describe it. Her training regimes were difficult, but it was helping a lot though. As he came upon the part where they were doing medical ninjutsu, Naruto chakra was quite in tune, but for Fu, she kept on burning the fish. As Tsunade knew why. She was a Jinjuki. Tsunade felt that the best idea would be to bring her back, but seeing the look on Fu's face, she told her she had to learn how to split her chakra with the beast and use her chakra, not the beast, as Naruto had more control over his chakra, so Tsunade would never find out that he was a tail beast no matter what. Naruto also went into his mindscape as he spoke to Aisabu, yes, who told him his real name, as a fox simply just snarled at him, idiot. As Aisabu had a feminine voice just like Manatabe, as she decided to trust Naruto seeing and the others trust him as well, the fox simply snorted as he went back to sleep. So yeah guys, so it's basically as we left off. You guys can switch across the place and check for yourself. So what do you say begin this new episode? Time skip. It has been a month since Tsunade found out that Fu was a Jinchuriki. As Tsunade was curious what else were they hiding from her, Naruto decided that this was the best time to tell her that he had the Rinnegan. He had come to trust Shizune and Tsunade over the time they had been together. While she was a hard trainer and harsh, she definitely showed her kinder moments. It helped that she reacted well to Fu being a Jinchuriki and she was still willing to help them. And Naruto thought that it was better to not reveal his own intentions to her. He was confident enough that he could hit them, so he didn't have to worry about that. And it would just make an awkward conversation. Knowing Fu was a Jinjoki was one thing, but knowing that Naruto had 5 Bijutsu inside of his body from all the major continents, yes, that was a bad thing. Tsunade responded well to his dojutsu, with more training. At the moment, Naruto leaped back. The air whistled where his face once was, as Tsunade's hand ripped through the air with tremendous speed. She placed her hand on her hip with a cocky smirk on her face. Getting tired already, brat? You were the one that came to me asking to test out your new taijutsu skill. Naruto reached for the chakra flowing through his coils. It had seemed like a good idea at the time, sending earth chakra through his body, hardening his skin. It had shown effectiveness against weaponry. Kunai that would have embedded into his skin and caused him pain, just gave him small cuts. But unfortunately, blunt force trauma was more effective. He had come to Tsunade to try to find a way around this, or to increase his ability. But it was like a trade-off. The more he focused on hardening his skin, the less he was able to focus on moving around, as he spat some blood from his mouth. He was hit at least 3 times already. Yeah, it would be best if he not get hit once again. He was trying to switch between styles, to being light on his feet and then strong for defense. But he was too late 3 times now, and he's been blown right through the clearing by Tsunade's powerful fists. She was using this as an opportunity to take off some of the training gloves as they were, using more for her strength. As Naruto could see her chakra as it moved, so calm and collected, only using the right amount without anything wasted. She was indeed the perfect kunoichi, as she did everything in a split second, sending the chakra to her arms, hips, and everything to strengthen her body, while sending some to her fists as well to strengthen her muscles as Naruto saw them contrast. He shook himself from distraction as he ducked under a swing. It was embarrassing how much he was holding back. She said that she was serious, but she was nowhere serious as he knew that. He regret the limit he put on himself, not to use his Deva path, or his sand. Tsunade twisted her body in a second as she came around a fist that was going to slam right into him. With no time to dodge, Naruto quickly hardened his skin. As he sent as much earth chakra as possible, he raised his arm to block the blow. Her fists made contact. He could literally feel its shock run down his arms. His feet was rooted up from the ground despite him sending chakra to it to stay there. As he was sent sailing up in the air. He wasn't too out of it though as he twisted his body and landed on a tree trunk, as the tree trunk was dented by the force. With a wince of pain, he dropped on the floor panting. Right now this new style isn't looking all that impressive. He looked up to see Tsunade standing over him with her usual smirk, as she held out a hand for him. He took it with a grateful smile only to wince, as she had too much pressure. Give it time, she said. Nothing ever came from doing no work. As she dropped into a taijutsu stance. She had no real taijutsu stance, but she just used her immense strength and speed, and that made her truly fearsome. Whatever, it's a nice chance to let loose. The two got back into it as Naruto did his best not to get hit. Tsunade on the other hand was having so much fun. She thought that training these two kids was going to bring up a lot of bad memories, but it was the opposite. It was like while she focused on them, she didn't even have to think about her past. She even cut down on her drinking, slightly. Don't get distracted. Tsunade saw Naruto's eyes drift once again. She wasn't sure what he was thinking about, but getting distracted like that could be fatal in a fight. She made sure to show him that by punching him through a few trees. As she sent her fist straight towards him, Naruto brought his hands together. Come on, harden his skin, harder than stone, even denser than stone, he said, as he tried to make it hard as possible. Right now, he didn't want to be hit by that. Harder than metal, unbreakable. He felt a surge of chakra as he found his arms rising up without his own accord. Asura path. There was a tremendous deafening sound of something turning and grinding. Tsunade looked at her fist that was caught right near his palm. A small crater was under Naruto's feet as Tsunade had driven her fist forward and he caught it. Of course she wasn't going on out. If she was and her punches hit him, he'd have been at staying on the earth by now. But there was no way he should block her blows. And what was that sound? Naruto was also confused as he looked at the hand that was curled around Tsunade's fist. Tsunade pulled her hand back and he took a step back. What's going on, brat? As Naruto looked at his hand, it had a large dent in it, like someone had drive a sledgehammer into a metal wall. Before his very eyes, it started to correct itself, the skin popping out back normal, like it wasn't even hurt. As Naruto moved his fingers, they clacked against one another with a metallic ring. When the dent had fully healed, Naruto's hand returned back to normal. He brats and says he waved a hand in front of his face. He was snapped from his thoughts as he looked towards her with a smirk. The fifth path, he said. He ran off quickly where they had made camp, leaving Tsunade rather confused. Time skip. It took him a few months before he got a hand of his new ability, the Asura path, as he'd been experimenting. Parts of his body changed into machinery and back. He could feel things, but it was like holding them through gloves. Very cold, very solid gloves. The worst part was switching between his normal body and whatever he thought of. The only real limits were what he could imagine. He even had a day when they just called out random things and he tried to turn into it. It was similar to when he first unlocked his animal path, but it was far stranger and more energy consuming. And he could fire off blasts of concentrating chakra from his body. That was a strange day. He had marked that ability as a last resort. Now he had a perfect defense that would help him a lot. Tsunade had to use 60% of her strength to make him at least feel it. They hadn't tried any more than that, seeing that she feared that he might get seriously damaged, but Naruto was sure that he could take more. Ah, said Naruto, right now he was taking a well-deserved break, as he were in a tea house. Tsunade moved around a lot. That wasn't strange for Naruto and Fu, but she rarely stayed anywhere for 3 days. It made Naruto appreciate these times like having a small cup of tea before going back to tremendous training. Any good brat, said Tsunade, as she pulled a chair across from him. It wasn't too unusual for her to come and find him at times like these. Shizune had taken a liking to Fu, and the two went off to train their medical ninjutsu together. As Naruto liked that Fu has another friend, and the fact that Shizune was a woman, it was a big plus. Good enough, said Naruto. Tsunade signaled for one of the passing waiters to bring her a cup, as Naruto simply stared at her with a raised eyebrow. Before she caught the look, what? I'm allowed to have a other drink than steak once in a while. Naruto simply shrugged, still keeping that strange look on her. Eventually something caught Naruto's eyes, as Tsunade saw him looking at her. I have never asked before, but what is up with the diamond on your forehead? Her hand instinctively reached up and touched a symbol that has been a part of her for decades now. Not that she would ever admit it was for so long. She stared at Naruto for a moment before sighing. As much as she didn't want to admit it, having them around was rather helpful, as she rarely think about her deceased loved ones anymore now. And she was not drinking as much. Here she was drinking goddamn tea with him. Yeah, it was going really better than she actually thought. There is no harm in telling him. It's my yin seal, she said. Naruto blinked in confusion. It naturally collect my chakra over time, siphon it off from the kaimon and storing it. When I release a seal, my body takes a sudden influx of chakra to activate the Susu Saisei, so I could regenerate from normal life-threatening injuries in a matter of seconds. Naruto nodded in amazement before he frowned, as she realized he was thinking like a ninja, looking underneath. There must be some kind of drawback to a technique like that, or else every ninja would have one. Go on then, brat, said Tsunade. Use what I taught you and work it out. Naruto please stand in front of him as he started to think. He had read enough medical ninjutsu scrolls at the temple, and he had read a lot about medical ninjutsu from Tsunade. But this seemed complex. But still, cells can only multiply a number of times, said Naruto. Tsunade leaned back, an impressive look on her face. She hadn't expected him to get it so quickly, but then again, he always gets things quickly. That means using the technique would shorten your lifespan. Maybe years, depending on how severe the injuries were. But you will also need a large chakra reserves, so that siphoning some off over the years wouldn't affect you that much. But why is it called a yin seal, and not a chakra storage seal? Tsunade blinked, she never expected that question. Just another example of him surprising her once again. Because they separate chakra into yin and yang, only storing the yin, while the yang portion is circulated through my body and dispersed like normal chakra. Naruto looked confused. Yin and yang? Tsunade blinked in surprise. She had been operating on the thought that he knew about the two halves of chakra. Sometimes she really had to remind herself that she was speaking to a 12-year-old and not a colleague in the medical profession. Well, he just acts so matured. Well, that's right. I suppose yin and yang chakra would be a bit too advanced for you. Naruto nodded as he was now interested in the conversation and the direction it took. You know that chakra is composed of physical and spiritual energies. As he nodded, well, yin and yang are more controlled, powerful version of those you can use with actual practice. Many clan techniques that are not Keki Genkai rely on yin and yang manipulation, just like many medical techniques. Naruto blinked in surprise to her gears in his head that was spinning rapidly. Chakra is naturally composed of yin and yang, but the composition isn't exactly even. Some people are more in tune to yin, some people are more in tune to yang, while some people have a more balanced chakra flow. There have been a few studies into it, but right now it's a fairly untapped field. More so we know is that yin chakra covers imagination and body, while yang chakra governs life. Naruto's eyes widened. What Mantabi said so long ago, it was making sense. So that's what I was missing. Huh? You say something, brat, said Tsunade, as she was sipping her tea. Oh yeah, I was wondering, could you teach me about separating my chakra into yin and yang? Tsunade blinked as she took another sip, her eyes narrowing in the small blonde. She knew there was something else on his mind, but she trusted him enough for him to come to her if he was important enough. That's a very complication aspects of chakra, you know. Some people can't even do it because they have more than one in their system. Naruto simply smiled. He felt his nerves settling down, but he was bubbling with excitement. Tsunade didn't know about his ability, so he had to play it down for a few moments. I can handle it, he said. Tsunade looked at him for a moment, before smirking. Alright then. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief before he saw the smirk on her face. Of course, don't think you're getting out of your undertraining. This is just extra. There was a dangerous glint in her eyes that made Naruto nervous. Time skip. Naruto settled himself on the ground for a moment, as he had gone through some intense training earlier, and what he was trying to do wasn't exactly chakra light. Fu sat off to one side as she watched a blue glow fade from his hand. She was there in case he completely passed out, and as an excuse to Tsunade later on, he could say that they were sparring. It had been a month since he learned about the properties of yin and yang chakra, and a few days ago he was able to split it, even if it was only for a moment. It was why he felt confident enough to do the complete Bemba Susu. The ability that the Sage of Six Paths was able to do, to bring life into the tail beasts. But he never took into account just how draining something like that would be. He even maintained the blue flames over his hand, which he now understood was a representation of his yin chakra, proved challenging. Maybe he should rest and try again tomorrow. Naruto looked up with a smile, as Fu was concerned for him. It's alright, I still have plenty within me. Fu frowned. He didn't look it, as he looked like he was running on fumes at the moment. She knew the only thing standing between the world and the 5 Biju was chakra, and if he exhausted himself to the point where the seal yet weakened. But she trusted him not to go too overboard, so she sat back. Maybe I'm just being too overambitious, trying to create something from the start. He looked at the black dust in his palm as he let it fall onto the ground harmlessly, as he wondered what to do. As he turned, the Megatama ring that Sora had made for him brushed across his face. He then removed it as he looked at it for a moment. I wonder. Fu looked as the hand holding the earring suddenly burst with blue flames. For a moment she worried that he burned her with the earring, something that was given to him by a special friend for what she heard. As his other hand then started to glow with a crimson flame, as he brought his two hands together. As the flame became purple as he held onto the earring, his breath became more labored, as sweat started to fall from his forehead. There, the flame suddenly died away, and Naruto had now 2 Megatama earrings in his hand. They might look the exact same, but they were not. The reason is, the one that he created, he tried to dissolve it back in the black dust, but he could not. It was everlasting. He had created something solid in the world. As a big grin came on his face, he had a lot of practicing to do, as his hands started to lit up in blue flames once again. Time skip. The group was making their way along the path of the southeastern coast of Naminakuni. Tsunade groaned as the peaceful sound was interrupted. One of her debt collectors had caught up to her, so she wasn't able to cure the hangover that morning. But the more she put off, the less effective she was at to remove it, and now she had to deal with the headache behind her eyes. She groaned again as Naruto walked behind her, his shakijo in hand. It's been over a year since he'd been with his sensei and sister figure. The training for the most part was brutal, but he was sure that Tsunade warmed up to him and Fu. The time they had spent together, he could literally see her smiling more and more as the weeks passed and turned to months. Tsunade groaned once again as Naruto's eye twitched. While she has gotten better at drinking and gambling, there was just some personality traits that she couldn't get rid of. But Naruto knew that he'd gotten through to her, as she opened up a lot more, especially in the past few months, as she regaled them with stories from her early career, even some other ones from her genuine days. You know, if you stop drinking so much, you wouldn't have to deal with these headaches at all. Tsunade shot him an evil glare. They had talked about this a lot of time before, but the conversations always went the exact same way. He would offer advice he thought was helpful, and Tsunade simply ignored him. Shizune had spoken to him and told him that it was a way for her to forget her memories, but there must be an easier way, Naruto thought. Maybe if you drink you will understand, said Tsunade as her head pained again as she groaned, rubbing her temples. That was one other thing. She has tried to get both him and Fu to drink, but all of it was rebuked by the small monk. Fu had tried some, though, but it seems like it was impossible to get a Jinchuriki drunk. Their body simply purged the toxin from their body, for it was even noticeable. Perhaps, said Naruto. Tsunade turned. She was surprised. He usually put up more of a fight than that, and his voice sounded strangely quiet. She had known him for a year now, and he was not like most monks. It seemed like his monk training tried to suppress his brash attitude. Well, it was doing good sometimes, but sometimes it just came out. What's wrong with you today, brat? You've been awfully quiet. I'm just thinking. As he looked towards the ocean, Fu was reading a small scroll, but she kept her ear towards the conversation. Shizune was the one that gave her the scroll, as she was walking along them as well. As Naruto has noticed that Fu had become a lot closer to him lately, quite literally, she would sit by his side throughout most of the day, and sneak into his bedroom at night to sleep. Naruto wasn't sure what it was, so he humored her until, well, she got over it, or whether she wanted to talk about it. I'll be 13 in a few weeks. If I had stayed in Konoha, I would be a genin by now. Bringing up Konoha was a sore spot. For Shizune, she hadn't been to her home in almost 2 decades now, and Fu hated the place because it was a place that hurt Naruto, but it was the reason why she met him though. Sometimes she'd think that it was a good thing for Konoha to be so cruel to him, because if they were not, she wouldn't meet him, but she quickly sent away those thoughts. Yeah, I guess you would. Naruto looked up as he was surprised. It was Tsunade that had spoken first. That is, if you passed the graduation exams. I bet if it wasn't for those monk training, you'd have been some loudmouth idiot, screaming about this and hyperactive like that. She snorted her own joke, before smiling sadly. She wasn't an idiot. It didn't take her long to realize the similarities between the 4th Hokage and Naruto. She remembered Kushina as well before she left the village. She saw some of her traits inside the boy. It pained her every time he mentioned he wasn't sure if he was a true Uzumaki or not, dreading to think what Kushina might have done if she had heard that. She wasn't entirely sure what Saruto was thinking, keeping the boy heritage away from him. But she still had a little faith in her old sensei, so she did not say anything yet anyway. Well, she did drop the occasional hints here and there. Hey, I wouldn't be that bad, said Naruto. Tsunade simply snorted. Sure, I bet you would be addicted to ramen or some other unhealthy food as well. He didn't respond. She looked back. He was looking at the ground. But that look quickly passed. Nah, come on, Fu, he said. Back me up here. Fu looked up, startled of her reading, as she was suddenly pulling the conversation. As she saw them gaze at her. I'd rather not get involved. I can't win, said Naruto, as Fu gave him a soft smile. Ha, us girls have to stick together, said Tsunade. They walked on for a bit longer and the mist started to get more strong around them. Naruto was looking around curiously. It reminded him a lot of their time in Naminakuni. Well, without Yagura loyalists, trying to ambush them. Should the mist be this bad out here, Naruto asked. Tsunade looked back over her shoulder at the young monk, as her headache was almost completely gone now. Yeah, it's usually like this out here, because of Naminakuni out there just out to the sea. As she pointed off to the coast where the mist was even heavier, Naruto looked over. Not even his Rinnegan could pierce the thick veil. Naminakuni, he said. He had studied a few maps, but less smaller nations hadn't really interested him that much. Tsunade waved her hand. Apparently, they were heading to a town where a gambling tournament was going to happen. It's a little island nation. Nakuni has some trading with it, but it's mostly dealing with fishing and ships. Some major cargo shipping set up company back there some time ago, and the country has been quiet ever since. Naruto is irony at that. Tsunade caught that she quickly waved him off. Don't get any ideas about the kid. It's common for a small country to isolate themselves when they're going through a bit of hardships. She hoped that would placate him, but she groaned as she saw a gleam enter his eyes. Hardships? Tsunade groaned again. She felt like she was digging her own grave with this. You're not gonna let this go, are you? He shook his head no. Look, I don't know much, but apparently when that big shipping company set themselves down there, the village shut down all their border nation. A few company ships got in and out before the lockdown. It's just talk about this point. But apparently there were rumors about the island falling into hard times. Look kid, I already know what you're thinking, and it's a bad idea. The affairs of our entire country are not your concern. Do not make them your problem as well. It's just not worth it. As Naruto frowned as he looked towards the country direction once again. But don't we have an obligation to help them if they really are struggling? I mean, you're a medic. Tsunade sighed once more. Sometimes Naruto was just too good for his own good. Naruto, I'm a medic, but I'm a shinobi as well. And if there's one thing that lifestyle teach you, don't get involved in someone else's business without compensation. She sighed, raising her hand to stop what he was about to say next. But I already know you, Brett, despite what I may say. You're gonna go off and help them no matter what I say. Damn it, I should have just kept my damn mouth closed. Fine, you know what? Consider this your first test. What do you mean, said Naruto? You have given us both tests before. Tsunade simply smiled. In Konoha, the Genins pass a test to graduate from the academy. It tests their abilities that they should have learned there at the academy. However, to become a Genin, they have to pass another test to see if they can use those skills practically. This is their proper test, you know, the skills I've taught you. Now, you need to go see what it's real like for a medic out there. I thought we weren't supposed to stop until our training is complete. Who said anything about your training being complete? There's more to training than just learning techniques and reading scrolls. Experience is the most training you can get. Only a naive child believes they need to just memorize a lot of facts to accomplish something. You can't learn to swim without getting into water, can you? Naruto wasn't beside her, so he didn't see the look enter in her eyes, but she quickly shook it away. She sounded confident, but she knew if they headed off to Naminakuni, the chances of them meeting them again without any complications are very slim. She knew about his ability to summon anything though, but the idea of being suddenly whisked away wasn't very appealing to her. She didn't know what she would be doing or how important it would be at the time. She sighed sadly. The last year had been a good one. Definitely, one of the better in her life, and she was actually sad to see it end. It would just be her and Shizune again if they left. Out on the road, as it made her incredibly sad to see them go. I don't know what to say. Naruto seemed shocked. He never expects Tsunade to just release him like this. Sure, at first she was not really fond of them, but bonds have been grown. Fu seemed at loss for words as well. Or maybe she was just being normal. Well, don't say anything then. Goodbyes. Always get too sappy anyway. Naruto smiled at that. He hoped Tsunade would never change too much. He would miss that abrasive attitude. It was good to have someone to argue with, like equals. The group had stopped. Naruto moved forward and wrapped his arms around her waist. Thank you for everything, Tsunade-sensei, he said. She froze for the contact. Memories of her younger brother, attacking her like a barrage. I can't express how much I appreciate you teaching me over the last year. As he released her from the hug with a big smile aimed at her, you've been the closest thing to a mother I ever had. If she was shocked before, she was now comatose as she stepped back, shock over her features. What? Said Tsunade. I never knew my mother, said Naruto. And the matriarchs at the orphanage avoid me as much as possible. The Hokage was like a grandfather to me, and I always wonder what it would be like to have a mother. I like to think that traveling with you is as close as I would get. Tsunade moved forward and grabbed him into a bone-crushing hug. Damn you, brat, I told you about the goodbyes. Tears started to gather at the corner of her eyes. She wiped away those that escaped quickly as she pulled back the rest of them. As she released him, she leaned back up, coughing, clear her throat. Come on, Shizune, I need to leave now before this get all emotional. The younger woman who had just said goodbye to Fu smiled, as he would be sad to leave them, but her place was at Tsunade's side. Goodbye, Tsunade-sensei. Tsunade gritted her teeth as she glanced back one more time. Behind Naruto, she saw Naoki and Dan, their hands rested on Naruto's shoulders as they were smiling at her. She turned back around, striving off until the mist finally separated them, as the tears started to fall. Don't die, Naruto, she thought. Meanwhile, as Naruto and Fu were making their way, when she was hugging him, Tsunade slipped a small, scrolled into one of his pouches. He didn't feel her doing it. He would look at it later when they had some time. As his gaze drifted to Fu, watching her for a moment, she had grown up a bit in the last year. Her frame started to fill out. She was wearing a white clothing, unlike the camouflage she was wearing in Naminakuni. She also had a clip in her hair, so their hair would come down her face. It was the same color as her eyes. That wasn't to say that Naruto hasn't changed either, as his ears extended even more. There was two bangs in his face coming further down even more. His training with Tsunade also added some muscle onto his frame though. Not too much, but it was noticeable. You know, I wouldn't have stopped you if you had wanted to go with them. Fu blinked as she was lost in her own thoughts. As she turned towards him. What do you mean? If you had wanted to continue on with Shizune and Tsunade to complete your medical training, I wouldn't have stopped you, he said. He felt ashamed in his rush to help people at Naminakuni. He never thought about what Fu might think. Fu just stared at him as he became rather nervous, as she just continued to stare at him. Until she finally spoke. I've decided a long time ago. Wherever you go, I'll follow. Naruto blinked at that as he wondered when she made that kind of decision, and whether she thought it through or not. Then again, she always thought things through first. But why? She just smiled, she turned and walked on, his question going unanswered. Wait, Fu, what do you mean? He said. She just smiled as the both of them disappeared into the mist towards Naminakuni. As Fu thought to herself, as Shizuka had asked her that same question when they were back at the rebel camp, as her and Naruto had integrated with the people quite well, but she just didn't know how to talk to people. As Shizuka came over to spoken to her, and the conversation led to her, well, following Naruto. As she followed him, there was no one else like him in the world, and he saved her. There was just something about him that made you want to follow him no matter what, and up to this day, that has never changed. Time skip. So this is Naminakuni, said Naruto, as he was reminded of the villages in Mizunokuni when the rebellion forces and the loyalists clashed. The only people that seemed to have a way to go was the fishermen, but yet they lack any kind of energy in their movements. I never expected to be this bad, said Naruto, as he saw a couple of children. Their clothes were barely hanging on to them. Store owners were leaning up against their stall, their products and their customers. It nearly broke Naruto's heart when he went up to a woman, as she bought a couple of apples and her eyes lit up so much, she gushed uncontrollably with thanks. While Naruto stood there, unsure how to react to such a thing. What could have caused all of this, Naruto said. As Fu was even angry, she looked around. The hopelessness, the fear, those attitudes were all too familiar to her. She had seen it within her own reflection so many times before. I think we should help, said Naruto, but where do we start? As he turned, Fu was gone. As he turned back to see a spot of mint-green hair surrounded by a large sea of children. As Fu was being swarmed, she gave out food to one of them, and word had spread rather quickly. With a smile, he walked over to help. Excuse me. Naruto froze as all their eyes latched onto him with the apples in his hand. Can I get to my friend? All the eyes looked back to Fu, who looked frazzled, like she had walked into a small hurricane. A young girl moved with the group. She looked to be 8 or 7, with spiky, unruly brown hair, wearing a shirt that was too big for her, hanging off one shoulder. You have any food, mister? Naruto felt his gaze softening as he gave her the apple. A big smile lit up on her face. She rushed forward on stubby legs and wrapped her arms around him as best she could. As quick as it happened, she let go and rushed off. After handling some food, they moved on again. Now that they had a real destination, Fu seemed to be in deep thought as she walked with Naruto. We can't just hand out food to everyone we come across. You know that won't help anything. Naruto sighed but nodded. It was the same thing that was in Naminakuni. I knew that. But unless there's some kind of rebellion we can join, what else can we do? Fu looked back up, that same determination in her eyes when she wanted to find Tsunade. We find out what is causing this, and stop it, she said. Naruto nodded, but he knew that it wouldn't be that easy. Last time they helped change a nation and for the better, they had an army with them and they still lost a friend. No, it was just the two of them, facing against an unknown enemy. Come on, we'll get something to eat. It will help us think. They keep walking until they end up at a small noodle stand, but there was no one there. Naruto drummed his finger on the counter. He heard ruffling as someone was coming. You're hearing things, old man. No one come by here and The girl froze, her mouth agape. At the sight, at not only one but two customers sitting down right there. She just stared. She was about their age, with long brown hair stretched on her back, the top with a small bandana tied, as she was wearing an apron over her shirt, and baggy blue pants. Oh, I'm sorry, she said, as she grabbed a pen and paper and stand before them. I'm Murabi. Can I take your order, customer-san? Fu nodded as she motioned towards a prom udon on the board behind them. The girl nodded as she turned towards Naruto. Customer-san. As Naruto shook his head, for a moment he saw Ayam smiled at him. Yes, I'll have 2 beef. The girl nodded as she wrote it down and ripped the paper and placed it on a small board behind her. Your orders will be right with you, she said, as she disappeared behind the stands once again, as pot and pan could be heard. A small part of Naruto knew that the memories of Ayam and Toki wouldn't, leave him, but he never knew they would come back to haunt him like that. He was about to shout in happiness at seeing her. As the minutes passed, here we go, 1 brawn and 2 beef. Naruto nodded as Fu grunted a response, as she was still furious about who was doing this to his place. Murabi leaned against the counter as he watched them as they ate, as Fu was just picking at hers. So what brings you here? You're obviously not from Naminakuni. Naruto swallowed. We're just traveling. Heard Naminakuni's a good place to be right now. Murabi smiled sadly as she played with the hem of her apron. I'm afraid you're misinformed. I recommend you leave Nami soon. It's not a good place for anyone to be right now. He just continued to eat, as a small frown was on his face. Well, the noodles are very good, he said. Murabi gave him a beaming smile. Well, look who's a flatterer, she said. I don't think your girlfriend will be all that impressed if you get that up. Naruto nearly choked on a mouthful of noodles. Fu is my girlfriend, we just traveled together. Fu didn't seem to have noticed as she just kept on picking at her food in thought. Murabi gave him a skeptical look before she shrugged. She was just happy that she could talk to people. Alright, thanks for the compliment anyway. It is my father's recipe, but I made them myself, so I'll take all the praise I can get. Naruto gave a small nod as he started to eat once again. So, is he about? So I can compliment him, said Naruto. Nah, the old man has been holed up in bed for some time now with a fever. Well, there's not any customer for the business thing I ate either, she said. Naruto slurped up the rest of the noodles. Maybe I could help. My friend and I know some medical ninjutsu. Murabi looked up in surprise. She never expects someone her age to know something like that. Oh, I could ask you to do that. She looked down guilty. We wouldn't have anything to pay you with, she said. Naruto gave a short laugh. It's alright, we're just happy to help. She looked at him with curious eyes, a habit gained from being tricked and screwed over so many times. But there wasn't a hint of deceit on his features, just a compassionate smile. Her shoulders relaxed as she grabbed the 2 bowls and placed them back for later. If you really would, that would be great. Medicine is too expensive for us right now. I think he's been getting worse lately. Naruto nodded as he looked back. Fu hadn't even touched her food yet. She never acted this way in Naminakuni, so he wondered what she was thinking about. Murabi brought them out to the back of the stall, into a living room area, as 2 doors are leading off probably to the bedroom and bathroom. While it wasn't identical, it was strangely familiar towards the Toki resident. He could see his 7-year-old self laughing happily as Toki told him a story about when he was a young chef. Ayam would watch from the corner of the couch, smiling, and giggle every time her father made a fool of himself, just to make the blonde laugh. The old man's right back here, she said. Luckily, the man looked nothing like Toki. He was a tall man with steel, grey hair, and an unruly beard. Naruto imagined when standing who posed quite the intimidating figure. So my ears wasn't deceiving me. We really did have customers then, as he smiled at 2, before looking towards his daughter. Murabi, what's going on? She looked down as she started to fumble a bit. They say they knew medical techniques, and with her fever, the man started to laugh, cutting her off. The man didn't really look sick as Naruto looked at him. No, it's just a passing bug. There's no need to call in the medics just yet. I may not be as spry as I used to be, but this old horse has plenty of more years than him. Naruto's smile gave a small nod, but he moved towards the bed. That may be the case, but it's always better to be safe than sorry, right? The man looked at Naruto before he grinned. Playing it safe is for those who were too coward to take a leap in life. Anyway, we have nothing to pay you with. Being dirt poor at the moment. Dad, Murabi said. The man simply laughed. Don't be like that. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's not like it's our fault. If people had the money, they would be flocking far and wide to come to our little stand. As he smiled, looked at the ceiling. We have the best udon noodles in the world after all. Naruto smiled sadly, his hands started to glow green with medical chocolate. Don't worry about paying us, we're just happy to help. The man looked at Naruto with a calculating gaze, before he simply shrugged. Well, in that case, go right ahead. Mabe placed her hands on her arm, as her father was embarrassing her. Never turn down free help. That is what Makano always taught me. As Naruto decided not to ask, as Naruto did a full scan, the information from the scan would be transferred directly into his mind, but only a trained medic could discern anything from the jumble of information. It was like looking at a code. So what symptoms have you been showing and for how long? As Naruto didn't really have to know, but Tsunade told him that making light conversation with a patient would put their body at ease, and the diagnostic easier. Oh, nothing much, I got a small headache a few weeks back, but it just kept on coming back every few nights. Then a week ago I got a tiny fever and my daughter was beside herself with worry, as his daughter had her arms crossed now. Well, excuse me for being worried, you old goat. The man simply laughed. Her mother's daughter through and through. Murabi simply groaned, but she had a small smile on her face, despite the situation. As Naruto continued to scan the man as he rested his hand over the man's chest, his technique flickered for a moment, before he allowed it to drop. Have you been having any chest pains? The man blinked once, as he scratched his head in thought. Well, my whole body has got its aches, but I thought it was some old injury acting up. I used to be a mercenary, you see. But yeah, I suppose I've been having the occasional chest pain. He noticed his daughter penetrating gaze. Why? You're developing a small clog in the artery to your heart. It's rising your blood pressure, which is why it caused the headaches and fever. It's nothing to worry about. There's a simple remedy that can break it up in a few weeks and allow it to disperse in your blood. The man smiled happily at that. Well, that's good, isn't it? The man said. If you hadn't noticed, it would have continued to grow, eventually blocking the artery. It would have put a serious strain on your heart and caused it to bleed out. The man gulped in surprise, his eyes widened. I would have died? Naruto nodded sadly as he straightened up. But like I said, it's nothing to worry about now. I'll give you the recipe for the medicine, and as long as you take it twice a day, you will be able to sort it out in a week. Most of the herbs should be able to grow in the coastal region, so you can find them quite easily. The man nodded as Naruto scribbled on the recipe and how to prepare it as he placed it down on the table. Well, I would say the meal was in the house, but we really need the money, as the man laughed, as he tried to hide his sudden shock. But that didn't last so long as he sighed. Really, as a young man, I always thought I would go down swinging, losing in a combat. To think, a little bit of dry blood was near the end of me. Well, now it seems I'm in the awkward position of being indebted to you. There's no need for that, really, said Naruto. Well, actually, I wouldn't mind some information. Oh, well, that's good. I thought I would have to give you Myra-chan for a second there, but suddenly he was slammed with a pillow. As Naruto chuckled a bit, as Murabi was blushing in embarrassment. So, what do you want to know? He asked. Just what happened in Naminakuni, said Naruto. Time skip. As Naruto left, Aisaki, that was a man's name, as he told Naruto about Gato Shipping Company. Talking about Gato, the man got filled with anger and hatred. He sighed as he walked back out in the street, full hot on his tail. He felt worried about her. Is something wrong, Fu? He said, coming to a stop. Oh, I apologize, she said, looking up. I was lost in my thoughts. Anything interesting? Said Naruto. To be honest, I was thinking about them in ways I would like to deal with this Gato person. And by deal with, you mean kill, said Fu. Naruto blinked at the blunt response before walking again. The two need to find a place to rest for the night, and he had to find an open inn. They were closed down from lack of travelers, or too much in a bad state. It's not that simple, Fu. Killing him would not make this country problem vanish. Disasters don't die with the person that caused them. Fu huffed as he crossed her arms. It solved Naminakuni problems. As Naruto glanced around the street, trying to imagine how it would look before Gato, as he saw a man and woman going to work, children playing in the streets, but now the place was just empty. And in Naminakuni there was a entire army of rebels to come in and fill the void that was left by Yagura's death. That doesn't exist here. As he gestured around, all the houses has their doors shut or their blinds drawn. Look around, Fu. You heard what Aisaki-san said. These people lost their hope, their spirit. Unlike Kiri, they don't have a will to fight back. With them like this, killing Gato would only ensure that the village would slowly die without anyone being there to take a true leader afoot and be in charge. Fu frowned at that, but she knew he was telling the truth. Are you saying that there is nothing we can do? Of course not, said Naruto. I'm just saying that we cannot act rationally about this. Alright, said Fu. Good, said Naruto. Now to find somewhere to get some sleep. Lucky for them, Naruto managed to find a small temple near the outskirts, closer villages to the island. The elderly monk was a bit hesitant to let him stay, but once Naruto told him that he just needed a place to stay for the night, he was invited. It saddened Naruto to believe that even one of his monks had been hit so hard by the bad times that had fallen upon Naminakuni, as they had to clean up the place before coming in, as the monk only had a little bit of money to take care of the room that he meditated and sleep in. As Naruto did not mind too much, as he blinked. Good morning, Naruto. He turned on his side, as he felt the warmth that hadn't been there when he fell asleep, as he found himself staring right into Fu's eyes. A year ago, he might have jumped away, but now he was used to it. It wasn't like it was unpleasant, it was just strange. Good morning, Fu. As he got up and stretched. Fu did the same, as Naruto turned away to be polite. Fu didn't particularly wear that much when she slept, as she ignored him every time he tried to tell her to wear something else, or put on some clothes sometime because sometimes she just went completely naked. But she ignored him. It was better this way, she thought. Any protest that he might have had, she told him to try it first before he judged her. That quieted him down, as he placed in his earring, always right by his side when he woke up, as he tied up his hair in a ponytail, as he walked over to open the sliding door that led outside. That piece lasted just a few seconds. There was a massive crowd there staring at him. There was a moment of tense silence before. That's him! Please, can you help me? My father is sick. Did you really? Eli Saki-san, my little baby Mana. Please save her. As Naruto stared at the many people staring at him, he gulped as he raised his hand. What's going on? He said. An elderly woman, probably in her late 60s, stepped forward. Are you the Naruto who saved the life of Isaki-san without asking for pay? As they all stared at him. Yes. The cries returned as people begged for him to heal himself or someone close to them, as he should have known that news would spread quickly on a small island nation. Time skip. Naruto fell onto the floor with a thud. Exhausted. The people had been relentless. He had tried to sort them out to find out what the most pressing problem was, but they all believed their problems were top tier, and he not even get to a quarter of the pay by the end of the day. And he knew that more people would be back tomorrow. Probably without full help, he would have been on the floor, exhausted, passed out by now. To use small chakra reserves and focus a certain era with max amount of chakra that was stressing on his coils. Fu wasn't much better as her hair was a mess, her body glistened with sweat. It was good practice though, they had to admit, for their tests and knowledge and skills. Is anyone here? Naruto looked over towards Fu, who was already asleep. He pulled himself to his feet as he saw a young woman, probably in her late 20s or early 30s, black hair, as she looked nervous as she looked at him. Hello. She looked at the small blonde in front of her. He looked exhausted. He was hardly the miracle healer that she had pictured. He seemed just a few years older than his son, in fact. Are you Naruto-san by any chance? He gave a small smile. Yes, that's me. How can I help? Her eyes narrowed again and she seemed nervous about being there. Oh, it's alright. You're tired. I'll come back some other time, she said, as she turned to walk away. But Naruto grabbed her hand, stopping her. It's alright, really. Now what's your problem? She looked down, before she sighed with a kind smile. If it isn't much trouble, could you perhaps take a look at my son? Naruto ducked in the side temple and returned, with his shakijo in hand. Of course, I'm happy to help. Oh, it's Tsunade, she said. Time skip. I'm really sorry for keeping you so late, Naruto-san. I know you must be tired from all that you've done today. The woman says he walked through the small village. I've already said it's okay. It's not too late in the day after all. As Tsunade nodded as he made the way. As Naruto had a sad look on his face, many of the cases him and Fu had looked over was because of their diet. So, Tsunade-san, what is wrong with Inyari, is it? She nodded as they turned onto a different path. I'm not sure if it's anything serious, but what I heard the Aisake, I had to make sure. He had a fever a few days ago and been complaining about stomach ache ever since. Naruto nodded as he could guess a simple stomach bug, but he could be wrong, so he need to do a scan. I can see you care about him a lot, said Naruto. Tsunade looked embarrassed. It was strange having such a, conversation with someone so young. Yes, I love my son more than anything, she said. What about you, Naruto-san, she said. Do you have anyone like that? There's been a few people very precious to me over my life, said Naruto. Tsunade didn't pry as she fished for her keys as she opened the door, as he was led into a well-furnished living room. Please excuse the mess, my father tend to lay things laying about, and I haven't gotten it cleaned yet. As Naruto waved her off as he stepped in, as he saw the bottles everywhere, he understood now what she meant. From the smell, he knew that they were slate bottles. That's not a problem, said Naruto. Is your father about? As it would be really bad for having a child that could easily get to the alcohol. As Naruto saw many of the bottles were still left open, with liquor still in them. Oh no, my father has left the island against their business. She stood there as she held onto her hands nervously. The topic about her father work made her look rather nervous. I suppose you heard about Gato by now. Naruto nodded. Well, my father is a bridge builder. One of the best if you were to believe his wild stories. A soft smile came on her face before it was replaced by a sad expression. He hoped that by building a bridge to the mainland, he can get past Gato blockade and bring some business back to the nation. Naruto looked up surprised. That seems like an excellent idea, as he smiled to himself. He thought everyone had completely given up, but it seems not everyone has. Yes, however, Naruto sighed there was always a but. Gato know this, and he tried to make my father's life as difficult as possible. He cannot stop my father directly, seeing that it's a natural, funding project. But that doesn't stop him from sending his thugs to harass the workers' families. Already, a majority of them have to quit already, as they don't want to lose what they have left for them. And I don't blame them, she said. I see, said Naruto, that really is problematic. Tsunade opened the door on the left as she looked in. Inari-chan, are you up? As Naruto looked around to see a young boy, as he had black messy hair, as he was sitting on a futon. Mom, who's he? Naruto smiled as he stepped inside. Hi, Inari. Your mother told me you were having stomach aches. Your mom was very worried about you, and she asked me to check about you to see if you're okay. What do you know, said Inari? You're not that much older than me. Naruto chuckled softly as he walked over. Age can be misleading. Do you know many shinobis become genins when they're only 12 years old? Tsunade blinked at that as she didn't know that, as inner workings of villages were always kept away unless you were a potential client. Really? Inari said, as he remembered the stories that he heard about shinobi growing up. Yeah, some are even younger than that, said Naruto, as Naruto was already lit up in a green glow, and he was moving back and front across Inari's chest. No way, said Inari. Yes, so he said Naruto. Back in the Third Shinobi War, there was even Jonins who were 9 years old. Huh? What was the Third Shinobi War, said Inari? Just between you and me, there was an entire war fought between ninjas 20 years ago that they never revealed to the public. Inari's eyes widened. He never heard about First Shinobi War, never mind the third one. Ninjas prefer to when no one knew anything about them, so most people were kept out of it. Tsunade smiled. Many people know about the Great Wars, but people just didn't talk about it because of bad memories. As she was glad that Naruto was, well, making it not sound too bad for Inari. How do I know you're telling the truth? Naruto leaned back. I guess you can't. But, as he placed a hand to his lip, but then you're doing exactly what they want you to do. But like I said, keep that between me and you, okay? Inari nodded as she turned, thinking about ninjas and wars. Well, that wasn't so bad, was it? Huh? What are you talking about, said Inari, as Naruto stood up and picked up his shakijo from where it was resting against the bed. What have we talked about, Inari? Even us kids can have cool techniques, right? As his hand lit up in green flames before he waved to the boy, leaving Inari completely silent. Tsunade gave her a small wave as she left, closing the door behind her. You know, I haven't seen him smile for some time now. Thank you for that. Naruto nodded. He could see that the boy had some trust issues, but he was still a child at heart, and he just needed a bit of bringing out. It's no problem, I'm sure whatever problem he has. He just needs time to bring them out at his own pace. Now, on a medical standpoint, it's just a little cough. It should pass in a few days, if not by tomorrow. Tsunade relaxed. Then thank you for everything. Naruto smiled. He always enjoys seeing the face of loved ones when he found out that everything was going to be okay. If that's it then, I need to get back to my friend. Get the idea if she wakes up and see me not there, she might do something unexpected. As she led him towards the door before placing hand on his shoulder. Are you sure? There isn't anything I can help you with, she said. You've done so much for my little Inari-chan, she said. Naruto smiled. My master once told me at the temple that I live in, that a kind deed can also be one's reward, and I think this sums up that, said Naruto. Thank you for inviting me to your home. I hope Inari gets soon, quickly, he said. Really, if there's anything you ever need, just come and see us. I'm sure Inari will be happy to see you again, she said. Naruto simply nodded. With nothing left to be said, he waved as he headed off. But guys, if you end subscribe right here, if you want the next part, be sure to do like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification as they posted. But I'm off now. See you guys soon. Peace.